is anime. Um, I want to talk about ontological um, science and physics. Ontological science and physics. Um, and like the reason I want to talk about it is it really it represents something within our society. It represents something within the civilization that we find ourselves uh kind of affixed to, because you can't really separate yourself from civilization, not actively, and if you attempt to, you will most likely end up being dragged back into it. um but first, before I get into that, before I get into fucking before I get into that, if you would like to donate to my research, to the channel, um, the PayPal link is in the description of the video. It's also in the description of the channel itself. If you have any suggestions, if you have any questions, if you would like to participate in any way, like if you'd like to um, give an interview on anything that you've seen me talk about on the channel. Um, and by interview, I don't mean like a podcast interview. I mean like for a study. Um, Anonymous, or if you would like for it to be in a video, that's also something that can be talked about. Um, if you have any topics that you'd like to see added to my research, added to the project, um, essentially anything. If you want to reach out, the email is gammaauobsidian, gammaauobsidian at gmail.com. The same thing for the Instagram. Um, I and before I get into it again, um, there is a video that I put up in the community section that there's a channel that I think is really cool, and I'm terrible with names. Dude's name is Chris. I view him as a very, very free thinking, intelligent dude. I subscribe to his channel and I've been watching his work. It's really cool. We've been talking about doing some collaborations, and that's going to be coming soon. We're going to discuss it soon. Um, and same thing, obviously, with Infinity Corridors 108. We're going to do another video soon, also. Um, we're really, I'll speak for myself. I'm really trying to create an atmosphere and create a culture of like collaboration and working together. But in a sense of there being some exclusivity. I'm not going to lie. There is some exclusivity. And the reason for that is because, exclusivity is not always a bad thing. Sometimes, but I'm not going to go on someone's show or have someone on my channel that wants to like debate about, if, you know, who's the prize, that stuff. I'm not doing that. There are some that kind of claim to be within the same circles that um, many of us are in, meaning philosophy, metaphysics, spirituality, whatever you consider yourself to be a part of. But then when you look into their work, or when you look into what is important to them and the things that they frequent, it's like debate, drama, reality TV type stuff, but in real life, I don't subscribe to that, and I'm not going to do that. So, um, very carefully, like I've always said, I'm very carefully looking for siblings. I know that you're out there, and that feeling never leaves. I know I'm not the only one here, and that has been proven, fairly quickly. I've never expected to just meet, a mountain of beings that are just like me. Even those that I call siblings are not just like me. What brother or sister, speaking in a familial sense, in the sense that we have gotten used to in current times. How many siblings do you see that are exactly alike? Brother and sister that like all the same stuff or believe all the same things. That doesn't really happen. What I mean by that is something different, something on a more, I don't know, like a more spiritual level, primal level. I don't know what to call it, to be honest with you. I don't really like either one of those descriptions. Those sound corny, but that's what it is, though. I got to get over that fucking word thing that I have. But I don't like buzzwords. All right, um, so something that I've been noticing within theoretical physics, ontological studies, period, um, metaphysics, um, lots of theory based and kind of not all encompassing, but ontological is the best word. Ontological is the best word. It's the study of our being. It's the study of all of this, what all this means, where we come from, what we are at our core, and things of that nature. And some may not agree with this, but I don't necessarily see how. Theoretical physics and these things that I just mentioned, those things are connected to, ontology. And there's like a kind of thin or blurred line to how some of this matters or how some of it doesn't. And then there's also the concept of like busy work that I talk about sometimes. And I think that many have there's like a pastime of almost kind of like finessing, you know, established um established academia out of money, but it's not. When you do that, you're not really conning academia, you're conning the public, because not just monetarily either. Like, I mean, you're definitely conning the public out of money, because people give donations, people make decisions on going to certain schools based on certain the work of certain beings and them being at that school or teaching at that school. um Lots of stuff, lots of stuff. And um what I've noticed is that there's a lot of, when you look into it, there's a lot of like kind of conning, like literal conning going on. Like, and to let me say this, my notes are all over the place, and that's just kind of how I do things. And I this one I think is gonna even be a little bit like weird for me. uh so let me take a step back. Someone recently said, because I'm sure it's because they've heard me say fuck time and I don't believe in time and all this other stuff. And there's other things that I talk about like that. And I'm gonna attempt to kind of explain something. So when I say that about certain things, like when I say space is fake, or when I say I fuck time, or I don't believe in time, I don't mean those things like literally. I mean them in a very specific way. The first one I'll go into is time, right? Um, the concept of time has different properties depending on the variables. You have the human perspective of time, the human experience of time, which is very closely um, it's essentially the same principle as like you can't have time without matter. So in this explanation, we are the matter, right? So as soon as you come into being, for you, time begins and moments pass. And as moments pass, you are you are experiencing that, which is essentially like you are you are not the measurement, but you are measuring those moments subconsciously. You don't have to sit there and stare at a clock. Subconsciously, you are measuring those moments. And there have been vehicles created to perpetuate this, like birthdays, right? Like clocks, like schedules, meetings. And I don't just mean like professional, like just meeting in a place at a time, at a specific moment. And for many, many things, time is useful for those things. What I mean when I say fuck time and time isn't, you know, something that I subscribe to, there's a couple of things. For one, I'm kind of referencing the telomere caps. We used to be able to, our bodies, our avatars would last much longer. We didn't, and I mean, depending on how far you go back, there's a potential for our avatars just not perishing, period. There's reference to it in religious texts. There's reference to it, you know, speaking in terms of theoretical genetics, like DNA. We don't access all of our DNA, and therefore it's just determined to be junk DNA. That is retarded. There is no such thing as junk within the knowable universe. It's just the concept of one man's trash is another man's treasure. Just because something doesn't have value to you does not mean that it does not have value. So junk DNA is a wild fucking it's a wild fucking assertion to make. And I can't believe anybody ever subscribed to that. I can't believe anybody printed that. I can't believe anybody would defend that, you know. And it's a very common theme that you see within the sciences where it's almost dogmatic. I'll get into that in a little bit. So um, when I say those things about time, it's you know a matter of perspective, and then there's also the many manipulations of history. History we've kind of separated from the concept of time, from the perception of time, and just think of it as like a subject or a reference of events, which is true, but it is also a reference to time. When you talk about history, you can't bring up a historical fact or data set without referencing when that fact or data set happened, right? You have to have a reference point. You have to have something to measure when that data set occurred. That is time. And when you create a culture or a civilized or a society that allows the heavy manipulation and editing and just complete impunity of saying whatever you want about these events and these data sets, that perverts time. So is time real in that sense? If you have beings that are powerful enough to edit time, is it still real? Is it still something that you should give that much reverence to? Because I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe that it is. That's not to say that, oh well, I don't use clocks or I don't reference time because of these you know positions that I hold. I'm just saying that time in itself becomes even more relative because of our own follies, because of our own fallacies. And it's not to say that we're all like directly participating, but in this sense, the fact that we're not holding those beings accountable and saying, hey, what the fuck, this doesn't make any sense, or, we're not making the extra efforts to fact check these assertions, that causes a very big discrepancy. And so one of the things I mean when I say that is your conception of time and mine are very likely different, and the events that have happened within those perceptions of time are going to be vastly different. One being may believe in dinosaurs, whereas I don't see proof of dinosaurs, not real proof. And as I've said before, the knee-jerk reaction many times when someone says something like that is to laugh, or, oh, you're crazy, or whatever. And that being gets to think that they are more intelligent, when in reality, if you go look into why someone may not believe in dinosaurs as it is told to us and expected for us to believe at this point, there are many reasons that a being might say, I don't necessarily believe in that yet. I'm open to it being proven to me, but the things that have been provided so far are not enough to convince. Same thing with that doesn't matter. You don't need a bunch of examples. Just time has so many holes and manipulations that it has become perverted. To pervert even that. There's things that everyone is aware of, like daylight savings time, which is a very old practice that is outdated and should be done away with. That was created for farmers. It was created for farmers to have more daylight to do their work. And that's very admirable. It's something I'm sure was very beneficial. And it's not to say that we don't still have farmers. Obviously, we still have farmers. But I think that they can manage if we were to do away with this very, very manipulative practice that is, I'm sure, very jarring to many people. As far as I'm concerned, just speaking for myself, I'm very happy when there's an extra hour of, relaxation, because sometimes I don't get that much sleep either way. And then the other time, I'm pissed off that I'm apparently up an hour early, And I think many beings feel that way. And I think it's one of the many manipulations that are used to kind of like good place us. You know what I mean? I'm referencing The Good Place, the show The Good Place. It's a mini torture. It's a little thing to kind of, keep is a mini torture. Excuse me. I was gonna say to keep you on your feet, but that's not what that is. It's not to keep you sharp. It's to, poke you. It's not necessary, and there are many aspects of time manipulation that are unnecessary. There's I don't know whether to bring that up at this point or to stick to the notes. No, I will bring it up now. So there's I can't remember which physicist it was, but I think it was actually, I don't know her. She was a moderator of a debate having to do with the concept of time. And there was a theoretical physicist, there was a scientific philosopher, and I think another, and a Hollywood physicist. I'm going to get into what I mean by that in a minute. But the moderator, made the really cool point. I liked her a lot. She made the really cool point after they had done all these back and forths over the mechanics of time and all these like very, very not important, points. trying to assert their theory as objective truth, which is a very weird thing in science overall. I was going to say right now, but that's like a weird thing in science, period. What the question that she posed to all of them was, why do we care about this? Why do we care about the specifics of the mechanism of time if we all have the understanding that moments passing in increments that's time? The rest of this stuff, it seems like you're the only ones that care about it. And you get these budgets and these large donations and all of this shit to study something that no one else is going to benefit from. No one's going to benefit from those specifics. And what I will say is I understand that time can be applicable to other aspects of physics and theoretical physics and all mathematics and all kinds of shit. But within these conversations, if you hear the level of like all over the place that it has become, the conversation of time specifically, and if it exists at all, you know, it starts to become ridiculous. For instance, there's a principle called absolute simultaneity, right? And the principle states that if I were to clap my hands, the moment that I clap my hands, you were doing something. Wherever you were, when I clapped my hand that time, you were doing something. Something happened in that exact moment, in that very moment, right? If I were to sneeze, something at that very moment was happening in Istanbul. From our perspective as beings on this realm, on this specific realm that we can touch, it is tangible. That is, to me, an absolute. That is an absolute, which, you know, it's absolute simultaneity. To argue against that, to me, is silly. Now, if you're arguing against that to lend credence to a theory that you're proposing, in my opinion, you're letting me know that your theory has a hole in it. If you have to get rid of absolute simultaneity for your theory to work, then your theory doesn't work. Do you see? It might seem weird that I'm saying that to you, but go look at some of the debates and these aren't just debates, like these are real back and forths in theoretical physics. That's not the only one. There are many that are just kind of just like that. And I spoke about Einstein recently. Thankfully, nobody came in the comments and was like, Einstein's right. Because I'm not just saying that Einstein has been disproven. Physics is saying that Einstein has been disproven. So like, and my thing is, I try to be as attentive to these things that I talk about as possible. Quantum theory, they've proven that shit with like a lot of experiments. And quantum theory disproves in many aspects, not in totality, but in many aspects, relativity, special and general. So, you know, it's just something where it's not, like I said, it's functional. It's not to say that I don't think that Einstein was smart. I'm not saying that by any means. Obviously, dude was smart, even in the sense of passing his theory off as absolute fact. Like, to be able to, that's some pimp shit right there. Like, I'm right, and no one else is going to know that I'm not completely right at this moment. You know? He did have his, like, I won't say detractors. He worked with other beings and had conversation. Niels Bohr didn't agree with Einstein, and I tend to give more credence to Niels Bohr, and obviously quantum theory worked out. So, whatever. Like, it's there are principles like that where there is objective truth. That's why I don't think or say that truth is never objective. Just I don't accept when people say that truth is objective, because yes, truth can be objective, but it is not objective. There are many things that people position as truth, especially in science and physics, more specifically, um, and mathematics, even, where it's not objectively true. You know, the reason I brought up Chris's channel is because we agree on that. He also agrees that when you go to when someone comes to you with a theory and the first thing they do is give you a bunch of what Chris calls givens. I like that. That's a good way to frame it. They give you a bunch of givens, meaning you need to agree to these things that I pose to you first as fact or as objectively true, and then I will give you new aspects as theory. What if I don't agree with the givens? What if your givens are not objectively true? Um, space time. Space time as a concept, it works in some ways, and in some ways it doesn't work, and that's kind of due to how Einstein posed it. And as moments have passed, that's why some theoretical physicists have a job, because they're essentially like patching up Einstein's work. And other scientists, other physicists and theoretical physicists are punching holes in his work because they're working on a quantum level. Niels Bohr arguably, I'm sure that there's other aspects to it, but if they would have worked together, uh, you know, specifically rather than debating, who knows what would have come of that. We maybe would have had a whole other model that incorporated both, that would explain much more. But even within that, I just don't think that we're going to be able to explain all of the things that we're trying to explain. Some of this is denial. Some of this is denial and delusions of grandeur. I talked about the delusions of grandeur within science and mathematics in the last in that other video, but it's such a large issue within our civilization that I don't even think some beings can imagine us without it. Um, Einstein didn't believe in the motion of time. And it's so, by that statement, he doesn't, I don't even understand how that would make sense to someone other than philosophically. And that's another issue that I see within physics, is a lack of distinction between physics and philosophy. Just because you come up with a philosophy and you maybe are gifted enough to create a mathematical theorem that can show that in a way, that doesn't make that real. That doesn't make that true. There's a physicist, a theoretical physicist, who she's really cool, and that's one of the things that kind of made me look more into her. Is she said something similar to that in one of these debates that I used as study material, as prep material for this video. She her statement was essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, that there's an issue with physics, and not just these days, but just period, where these beings come up with theory, or they find mathematical theorem or found mathematical theorem, and then they believe that to be real. And it's important to have the distinction of knowing that just because you theorize something doesn't mean that it's real or doesn't mean that it's true. You can add more context to it, or you can add evidentiary proof. The more evidentiary proof or experimental corroboration that you can add to a theory, the more likely it is. And then if you just completely prove that theory, then it is no longer a theory. Then it becomes, fact. It becomes a principle. And the lines between that have blurred so hard that you have pretty literally, stars like, physics stars, they're like entertainers, and the way that they can speak in this fashion that comes off as very like grifty, and people just kind of accept that, is wild as fuck. There's a channel on YouTube. Oh man, I forgot her first name. Her last name is Collier. What's her first name? Can I see through that? I can't. I can't. Dr. Collier. I really want to get that name off, because I respect her as a physicist, but I disagree with her about a lot. Angela Collier, very funny too. She's funny. Um, there's aspects of physics where it they almost become, it's like teams. It's like sports. It's like sports fandom almost, where it's not. That's not what it is though. It's, I mean, honestly, it's dogma. It's dogma, and you on obviously there's mathematics and things like that where, you know I think it just kind of comes down to what I mentioned a minute ago, where if you're a being that is more susceptible to givens, like you're okay with givens, then you probably will, like the concept of dark matter and things like that. But if you don't allow yourself to be taken over by confirmation bias, you'll see many respected physicists that are like, hey, dark matter is not real. That's not proven by any of the shit that you're saying proves it, you know? Um, but then there are other things that are, that have been proven by experimentation. So quantum theory, quantum entanglement, to be more specific in this example. If you have a particle on one side of the world and a particle on the exact opposite side of the world, there's something that tethers them to one another. There's something that can tether them to one another. And, that kind of busts up some of Einstein's, assertions. So quantum theory and relativity don't go together. They don't work together. And it's just becoming this back and forth that is a huge resource suck from other things that we could be focusing on but aren't. And I kind of have to say the same thing for space. you know? And I recognize that this is something that's not a popular opinion, and I realize that it's one of the many things that I talk about where as soon as I say it, it's like, oh, this dude doesn't believe in space. That's not what I'm saying. This is very similar to time when I talk about how I don't believe in time. When I say space is fake, what I mean is the representation that we are being given of what is above is not true. And it's so manipulated, skewed, and perverted that the the concept of what many are referencing when they say space and all of the attached like ideas that come with that are not proven. They are theory, but it's been shoved down your throat for so long and so repetitively and redundantly that it is now law. It is now dogma. You know, you can look into the sky and see things, yes. And we have named many of those things certain terms, yes. Um, but there are whole theories and concepts that have been attached to this that are not proven. And it's gone so far as to now a lot of physics is directly referencing space, which is basically saying, I'm going to reference this thing that hasn't been proven to prove this other thing. Do you see what I'm saying? I understand that many of us are attached to the idea of space. We think galaxies look cool. We think stars are cool. We think the sun is a star. You know, we think the moon is natural, although science itself, their own science, they will tell you that the moon is an anomaly and it doesn't make any sense at all in any way. When, especially as compared to if you were to give, if you were to accept the givens of other planets and moons, this moon that we have, moon, does not resemble any other moon that we can supposedly see. Also, I've mentioned before the Dogon tribe and I believe the Babylonians or the Sumerians. Someone else has a story of the moon showing up. The moon showing up here and not always being a part of this place. There are some that talk about the theory of the moon being a piece of the earth at one point. It broke off, and some, and the thing is, like, personally, I don't know which one of those could or would be true, but I also don't give a fuck because I can't prove that. There's not a way that you could evidentiate, like, you can't use evidence to prove that because we have limitations that are there, regardless of whether or not they're admitted to. We have limitations that keep us from proving many of these things. We cannot go into space. We can't. That's not a thing. Um, you know, recently, I think today I watched a video that was kind of like trying to poke at that and be like, no one's ever left Earth's atmosphere, and here's why. And it was kind of like a clickbait. They were basically saying, oh, we thought that the atmosphere only went up to a certain level. Um, well before reaching the moon, but we found out that it goes past the moon. And they were like, that's why we haven't left Earth's atmosphere. But to me, what that means is, you haven't left Earth's atmosphere, but you mean the original connotation of atmosphere. Like, whether you want to call it the Van Allen belt, or if you want to call it the firmament, or just atmosphere, whatever, that has not been breached. And I understand that many would like to reference the Hubble telescope or the James Webb telescope. Um, those are pictures, dude. I don't know what to tell you. That this is just my opinion. Those are pictures, and I don't I don't believe that. Just to be clear, I don't believe that. For the longest amount of time, NASA just kind of gave everybody pictures and allowed everyone to believe. In fact, I think they told everybody that those were real pictures. And then at some point, they realized that they were no longer able to keep that lie going. So then they started telling people that these are digital renderings of data sets that we have. This is what the data sets point to it looking like. Like, these are the types of explanations that are given for these things that we base a lot of our like view of many things on, and some would say, well, why the fuck does it matter if space is real or if our conceptual, view of space is real? Because other things are built on it. There's millions, if not $1 billion worth of resources being spent on dudes in fucking cardigans arguing about whether or not this wave function is the most accurate way to look at this place, like. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that physics and theoretical physics are a thing. It's very interesting to me, but it's just like most other things, there's a bunch of like really weird disingenuous shit going on where you can see some that are actually trying to accomplish a thing. Donald Hoffman is kind of unabashedly pursuing the knowledge of what this place is, in totality, rather than focusing on up and looking at the sky and saying, I know what's out there. Even though these are just pictures and none of us have ever been out there, I know what's out there. Donald Hoffman is trying to understand the nature of this place and our experience in it as observers. Like, it's it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that there are some that are doing something as I'd call that noble in a way, as noble as that, whereas others are, pushing theory that has not made any meaningful progress in like fucking 70 years. And there are little pieces of these theories and aspects that affect life, like everyone's talking about quantum computing, but we're very far from a quantum computer in real terms. It's just not there. That's not a thing that's there yet. Does that mean that they shouldn't study it? Not at all. That's not how science works at all. They definitely should, but money gets generated, resources get generated, and then a lot of people get rich, and then it just kind of dies out, but the money's still flowing. That's how string theory has gone. String theory has not had any meaningful like progression in a very, very fucking long time. Very long time. And there's lots of aspects of it that are dumb, like multiverse theory, String theory is not proven already, but then they use string theory to say, and there's an infinite number of universes, and there's a you in each and every one of them. And the way that they speak about it is very matter of factly and like, this is definitely real, but in reality, it's not real at all, and they haven't proven any of it, Physics really, like, they commonly use space as a foundational aspect, rather than observer or like perspective. So when they try to prove a theory or when they try to put forth a theory, you'll notice a lot of like the examples that they use. Like, if I put a particle, if I have a particle here, this is quantum theory even, and I don't really have a problem with quantum theory. But the original kind of example that's given with quantum theory is if there's a particle here and there's a particle in Alpha Centauri. I don't know that that's a real place. I don't know that that's a real thing, and again, it's not to say that I can't go to an observatory or buy a nice telescope and look up. Yes, We can do that. What I'm saying is we don't, there's all these things that are asserted that aren't, they're not proven things. So there's a balance in the middle of what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that all of the stuff that we see when we look up doesn't exist. That would be stupid. I'm saying that much of what we believe to be true about the up is fabrication. And there's been many like really big uh um leaps taken in explaining what is up there and what is out there. Um it's something that I kind of wonder when I was researching today, after I got about halfway through the day and I started thinking to myself, is this an aspect of entertainment? Is this an aspect of the circus for like maybe higher functional brains, for those that have more of an intellectual spin on their consciousness, on their brain function? Like, is this just busy work for them? And it's not to say, again, I'll keep saying this, it's not to say that none of it has any merit or that none of it has any meaning or that none of it is proven or works or any of that stuff. I'm just saying, once you start to get into things that do affect all of us, whether we think it does or we don't, like space, the concept of believing in space and space programs and Space Force and Space War now, and now it's Star Wars, like aliens everywhere. Like there's stuff that does affect all of us. It's not, I'm not just thinking about these things just to think about them. It's because, like, you know, even if indirectly these things affect all of us, especially if you happen to even just keep your ear to the ground on conspiracy shit. Many beings think we're going to be invaded by aliens soon. And, then that gets kind of, that idea gets corroborated by fucking news. That shit's on the news, dude. Did you ever think aliens and like UFOs and shit were going to be talked about on the news? Because I did not. Um, that affects all of us. That affects all of us. And there are other things about this place that are much easier to find the truth about or to, confirm or deny. But those things are not being referenced at all, or they're being done with complete impunity and without oversight. Whereas everyone's watching the news and looking at very potentially fake videos of blobs on a screen. It's not even captivating, really. They just keep telling you that it's captivating. Meanwhile, this shit over here, bad stuff. Very bad stuff, also captivating, but because it could kill you, blobs. We're watching blobs on the news. That's just disturbing to me. A lot of what's purported by physics and theoretical physics and astrophysics, it's possibility. It's not fact, and it's not law. It's possibility, but it's posed to us as fact. And if you listen, there's a difference between listening to like a lecture. So if you listen to one physicist or one whoever, then it'll sound, depending on how good they are at public speaking and their job in general, it may sound like, oh shit, so that's what that is. Okay, so then that's all right. But then if you listen to a panel or a debate even, you start to hear they don't pull punches very much. They're very like catty. They're kind of like theater kids, but they're kind of more mean than theater kids. It's kind of funny. I don't really hang out with theater kids, but I have heard that a lot. The few that I've met, they're like, you don't want to hang out with my friends, and I don't. I don't want to be around that. That shit sounds, dude, I don't know. That sounds kind of miserable a little bit. But they do the same. There's a lot of respect there, but then there's like lots of backhanded compliments and like little jabs and pokes and shit. But it's the reason for that is because they know that funding is not scarce, but it's like very competitive. And they, I think, all know that if you were to say specific shit, the funding's just going to be gone. uh if you work in string theory, then you have to be very specific about what you say, and I think you also have to be kind of like performative, because string theory is fucking dead, dude. It doesn't work. There's no proof, there's no experiments to show any of that shit. It's just like kind of well written sci-fi. It's fan fiction. Better yet, it's fan fiction. It takes aspects of things that do exist and then makes all these like claims, and they're not real. And then you get Marvel movies like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, or fucking everything everywhere all at once. You get stuff like that. And it looks cool. And it's not to say that the conception uh it's not to say that the concepts make sense in a movie, but then that makes you think that they are proven or real. I think that might be why they're being made lately. There's lots and lots of entertainment based shit that's talking about multiverses and parallel universes and alternate U's. And I've said before, I don't remember what video I said this in, but I'll say it again. I think that might be to get you to like two things. Maybe potentially to get you to be less attached to your avatar, so you're more likely to jump into that old VR headset when the time comes, or Neuralink, or potentially on a metaphysical level, in a metaphysical sense, to will yourself into separating into an unknowable number of yous, so that you are less capable, less powerful, less your soul, splitting your soul, your spark, your breath into many, instead of being the one that you are currently. That's my theory. But it's just a theory, and I'm not necessarily, it's intuitive. I'm not trying to prove that to anybody. The first part's not theory. They're definitely fucking string theory is look up string theory. Look up string theory and look up what people think about it. Look up what others don't look up physicists that are doing string theory. Look up other physicists and like watch them dog walk that shit with, you know. Anyway, I already talked about that. The human perception of time versus history versus time in physics. Yeah, that's very obvious stuff. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna go back over that. That was obvious. Um, Going back to space though, like there are questions that kind of demonstrate what I mean with some of these things, like space. Um, how Where do pictures of Earth? Where did the pictures of Earth come from? You know, on a mechanical level, that's not possible to take pictures. That wasn't possible at those times. And as I mentioned, for the longest amount of time, NASA was like, showing those pictures and alleging them to be real, and then came back around and said, no, these are digital representations. And I think very, very confidently now that they're doing the same thing with, quote unquote, satellites, Hubble and James Webb. And this almost kind of seems like a way of I don't know if I can say that. That's kind of that's what is that? Defaming a government agency? NASA's a government agency, right? Yeah, I can't say that. Uh they're getting money. They're getting money to do stuff. They do that, right? They get money to do things from the government, which is from your taxes. And then they give you pictures from the James Webb Telescope and from the Telescope, the Hubble. I don't know, man. There's just like I said, same thing with the International Space Station. Like I don't know what to think with that one. There's a lot of stuff that is obviously very much faked from that area. But that could be a real thing. I don't know why they would fake all that stuff, but maybe there is a space station in the atmosphere. Because I do think you can send things into the atmosphere. I just don't think you can go past the atmosphere. I don't think you can go even to the moon. That's been like if you can, why are you not still doing that? And then when you look up the answer to that, one of the reasons that I have found a video of one of them saying is we lost the technology. They lost the technology to get to the moon. They lost it. They don't know where it went. Um, and then more recently, India did a moon mission and passed off a video as them having accomplished it, and we just are supposed to believe that now. I don't think they're going to be dumb enough to do that thing where they pretend like they have pictures and video, at least not yet. And I really hope they don't do that thing where they have the president call them on the moon with a phone. I'm sure many are not old enough. I'm not even old enough to remember this. I'm just a nerd. But this nigga called them on the moon with a telephone, with like a landline. Nah, they didn't have cell phones. He called them with a landline, you know, and they had audio of it and put it on the news, I think. Yeah. So my thing is there are scientists like very serious scientists. I'm not shitting on their work at all, because a lot of what they do, I don't care to understand, and that's how jobs work. Some people have jobs doing this thing and others don't care about how they do it. They're just like, good for you. Same thing. They do a job, and I get that. What I'm saying is, how do you know things about these different scenarios, like a president calling a moon mission with a landline, and you're not suspicious of your career choice? Like you're not suspicious of uh the entirety of the thing that you do, especially like if you're an astrophysicist, or I mean really just any kind of physics. Like they talk about space a lot and everyone saw that. Like everyone, dude, look at the moon lander, look at the moon lander. These are things that don't make any sense at all, and there's just a level of like, well, we don't talk about that. It's like that thing in a family, that skeleton in the closet where when you bring it up, they're like, we don't talk about that. That's weird to me. That's very weird to me, and it's even weirder that many have built a career in a field that's a big pillar of the foundation, is like moon landing and satellites and things. And I'm always open to being proven wrong. I'm not 100% on the satellite stuff. Just I see no proof of anything being launched out of here. Not for real. Because the moon landing, not real. You know what I mean? So once you take that away, where is the proof of going into space? Don't show me pictures of space. Show me tangible, like at least believable and uh corroborate, like something that's not just like, well, here are pictures from space, or here's a dude saying how it was to go to space. Because if you show me those things, I have answers for them, you know? And the concept of space is kind of cool, but like I there's a lot of it that isn't proven, but we're all supposed to just kind of believe that it is. And that's disturbing to me. So, you know, um a challenge, I guess. If you believe in space and more specifically believe that we've been there, please show me how. Like, show me that somewhere. Uh, I would like to test my position on it. Um, yeah, I mean, I just talked about that. Astrophysics is dogmatic. All right, well, so no, I what I'll say is that just to kind of, I think I did kind of already float this, but science makes fun. And I didn't say this though. Science has a habit of taking pokes at religion, very specifically like Abrahamic religion or any religion that believes in like deities and things of that nature. You believe in aliens. Many of you believe in aliens, but you've never seen an alien. You just believe in the probability of them, which is paradoxical to me. That is very paradoxical. Um, but then also the way that science is defended, even in situations that it has been disproven or just not proven yet, that's what Abrahamic religious people do. When you say God's not real because you can't prove him to me, they can say the same thing to you about so much shit. And yet, you, in the same way that they do, are so in belief of your system that at some point you just expect the other being that maybe doesn't agree with you to just like accept that space or quarks or superposition or dark matter is real, though what you're saying is I have math that proves it. You can't show them dark matter. Like, you can't show them, you know what I mean? Like, so it's the same. They can't show you an angel, but you can't show them dark matter. So you're doing the same thing. And, I think that there are benefits to both of those things of religion in a sense. Not really. Spirituality, I'll say, because religion is fucking not cool. But there's good and beneficial aspects to faith and spirituality and so on, if especially if it's done in a ethical and not shitty way. And same thing for science and physics and all that stuff. But like both seem to have been very, very, very intensely like subverted and changed into something weird. Um, and I wondered to myself, if you were to remove fiat currency from both of those things, if everyone would be so fucking hard up to like jump into them. Would all these beings want to be preachers in pulpits and so quick to worship, or so quick to jump into physics and theoretical physics if the money wasn't there? I'm sure there would always be some, and I think that those are the ones that should be there. But the others that are doing these things for monetary gain and for control and mind control and shit, it seems to be a heavier um a heavier portion of beings doing it for those reasons than the agreeable ones. Um, James Webb Telescope only provides images. By that, I just meant there's no video. Even if there was video, I would still find that hard to believe, but it would be better than just giving me pictures, bro. Like the pictures that are provided by the James Webb and even more so the Hubble, you know, there's a 16-year-old in fucking every country, really, that can make those pictures. Maybe not 16. There's a regular dude. There's regular people that do not work for NASA that can render pictures that look like that or better. And that kind of doesn't, I'm not saying it disproves the concepts dealing with space. What I will say though is that it doesn't do much good for it. It doesn't help the argument, you know. Um, and I mean, I've mentioned before, Unreal Engine 5, I think, could probably give you some video of shit that would look like space. And would you know the difference? You know, I think there's a lot of like trust. There's a lot of trust that's been given to certain agencies and that's it's not deserved it's not deserved trust, you know. And I don't say that because of what I think. I say that because they lie. They've been caught in lies. You shouldn't give your trust to people that lie to you over and over again. That just it's counterproductive and very weird to do. That's like a trauma thing. That's abuse. You're being abused. That's fucked up. Uh, I don't know, man. Fool me once. You know what I mean? There's like a weird. There's like a weird collective cognitive dissonance. And I mean, I'm disappointed within the fields themselves because, like I said, there's a dogmatic like loyalty to these things, and I haven't been able to. I feel like if I were to get into a debate with a physicist or theoretical physicist or whoever, and I were to have a real debate or a real, I'd rather have a conversation. Debates have time limits, and I think that's dumb. If that were to happen, I don't know that I could. I would feel like it's mean to be like, so the moon landing is your only proof of space as you pose what space is. Not saying that there's no space, but moon landing, meh. And then because after that point, it just becomes a level of like confidence, saying the thing over and over again with confidence. Well, we have telescopes and so on and so on and so on. It's like, yes, yeah, there's something up there. What I'm saying is what is posed to us is not necessarily what we're being told it is. I really do want to go to an observatory. I would like to, because there's a level of speaking to this in a way that like kind of groups me with others that literally don't think that there's anything up there at all. And I think that's dumb because science does say that, if there's an in here, then there's an out there. The fact that there is uh, a separation, the fact that if you believe in a firmament, which most of those that are saying that space is fake, they believe in flat earth, which denotes a firmament. But I don't believe in that. Then that would mean something is outside of it. So to think that we're in here and that this is the only thing in existence and that there's a firmament and that's it, that is just as dumb as believing all of the other shit that like NASA and other space agencies are trying to like make people believe, you know? There's a lot of shit like this where it's like, just because I don't believe in this thing over here, damn sure doesn't mean I believe in this thing over here. Flat Earth to me is just as like, why do you think that as space helio space earth. um I think there's a lot of this shit where it's become like a weird discussion or argument but it doesn't matter, you know. The time argument doesn't matter because time is time and it passes. You need material, you need density, you need matter for time to exist. Once matter exists, then time is uh, not avoidable. Once matter comes into being, time is unavoidable. So, like, unless it has to do with theory, and the thing is, like, if you have to argue about aspects of your theory, then it doesn't seem very provable. If someone can say, yeah, but blah 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 blah, and then you're like, and you just start going back and forth, then you got more work to do. You know, don't I think it's weird that they're trying to like believe me, not him, about science. That's weird. Just prove it or don't. Prove it or don't. And don't expect beings to like just take your word on things or see very, very intense math equations and be like, this proves dark matter, you know? Because that doesn't do that. That's not what that does. You just said a thing and then you created an equation that agrees with itself, and others within the same field are like, yeah, but that doesn't prove that. It actually doesn't work, you know? Um the Fermi paradox, like the Fermi paradox basically is just saying like, why haven't we come across aliens? And I think that some beings use that like, see, space isn't real, but that doesn't mean that all that means is that we haven't met other beings that we know of. There's so many other like answers to that potentially that I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. All that means is that we haven't come across anyone that we know of. There are many that claim that we have and that they're here and so on and so on, underground bases and all that shit. Um, both are potentially possible. They're both potentially true, potentially not true. Until something happens, there's no real benefit to arguing either side of that. Not really, you know. Um, yeah, but I mean, I say all this, but there are physicists that I really like, and I respect their truthfulness. I respect their level headedness and their work, you know. And it doesn't mean that I agree with everything that they say. I don't think there's one being on this planet that I agree with everything they say. And I think it's probably the same for everyone, right? We all have differences of perspective, and we have individuality, which is something that makes this place very cool in a way. But Roger Penrose, his work is cool. Sabine Hassenfelder, um, Donald Hoffman works on simulation theory. Penrose's theory on reality is very level-headed in many ways. Um, Hassenfelder just is a level-headed theoretical physicist. All these beings have little parts of theory, or they have entire theory that are way out there, you know. But like the ones that I've been kind of combing for, they can show understandable context, if not actual experimentation that proves what they're saying. Donald Hoffman does simulation theory, but he has shit to back up what he's saying, you know? And not only that, but his work, as well as the work of others, disprove relativity and all kinds of shit, you know? Same thing with Niels Bohr. Niels Bohr's work with quantum theory, there's too much. There's too much shit to disprove. And the reason I'm talking about this, I think, is because this affects like reality. These things, like special and general relativity have to do with like gravity and time and all of these things that we've like um, built a civilization around scientifically. You know, it not built, but it changed science drastically. And now, we're coming back around to it and looking at it like, well, this doesn't work in a lot of ways. Um, Avshalom Avshalom Elitzer. Um, difficult. That one's difficult. He's very intelligent and very level-headed, but even there's things that I don't agree with per se. Uh, but he's level-headed and importantly speaks his mind because um, there's and Bjorn Ekberg, Ekebberg, Bjorn Ekberg, um, also very level-headed. All the reason why I wrote these beings' names down is because they're not afraid to like say, "Hey, this is wrong." This I know you're all making money off of it, but that is actually wrong, and I admire that. I think that's really cool, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just like coming off as like, "Oh, physics is stupid." I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying a lot of it is stupid. A lot of it is dumb and is not proven and doesn't seek to be proven. It would rather be agreed with or like kind of like worshipped in a way. Because in order to be worshipped, you don't have to be right or proven or real or any of that stuff. Just agreed to, you know? Um, on the other side of the spectrum, there are fucking weirdo Hollywood physicists like Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson who are full of shit and kind of say whatever to make money. Or go with whatever to make money. Michio Kaku, string theory hasn't done shit in a very very long time. He's aware of that. They're doing what's sexy and talking about fucking multiverse theory, and that has I don't understand how you would say that and like be serious because you can come up with math to try to be like this shows multiverse theory, but A, that doesn't show that, and B, how are you going to test for multiverse theory? Even if you do come up with math to explain it somehow, you can't test that. You can't test that. And I don't know, man. Why do we give a fuck about any of this shit? String theory, multiverse theory, dark matter, quarks. Like, there's many, many, many things that are not proven. We're nowhere near proving them, but like, we're expected to believe them or give money for them or give resources for them. And there's a lot of other shit that's seemingly far more important. And, you know, even more specifically, like potentially detrimental, you know. So I don't know. I guess that's all I got. If you want to donate to the channel, links in the description. Description of the channel too. The email is gammaauobsidian@gmail.com. I think I decided to do a video about that shit I talked about in the last video. Like meaning doing some research on it. Not really excited about it. Um, and I'm trying to make decisions on how much I feel comfortable talking about personally. Um, I don't know. I don't know how much I should talk about that, aspect of it. And I get that that doesn't give you a lot of context, but I also am not going to put myself or my kids' life in that kind of like danger, you know? not to make it dramatic or anything, but that's not. I'm not just saying that. There's been stuff that's happened to let me know, like, oh, you can't fuck with people's like money like that. You know what I mean? When you fuck with people's money, they'll do fucked up shit. They'll do weird shit. So I don't know. I don't know. I got to think about that. I don't know how much I'm going to put into that uh part of the video. But I do want to show like I wasn't just talking when I talked about like frequency specifically in terms of like suggestibility, because that sounds like science fiction shit, but it's not. That's not science fiction shit at all. Frequency is very capable. They have done lots and lots of extensive research into it. And I mean, they're making non-lethals right now. You can go look up videos of them using non-lethal microwaves and, ELF, EMF. I don't understand why I need to do that much to show proof of it, but I definitely can and will. I'm just not excited about reading the potentials and the things that they've already done because, the stuff that they admit to, they've done like 3, 4 times that. Anyway, I'm going to go. I love you and I appreciate you for listening, brother.